Okie dokie. Like I said, I'm excited. Spent a lot of time reading the book and watching some of your presentations as well to hop more into it. Before we hop into all that, you are a white person, white female. Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. This program, the C.O.W.S, context of white supremacy. I use the terms racism and white supremacy as synonyms. And I use the same definition for both terms. Definition that I use for both terms. Well, I guess I'll say first, I've concluded that we're in a global system of white supremacy. Racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. And the definition I use, a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that definition is accurate?
I do believe that system exists. I would have one caveat, because in my estimation, there is some racism that's not intended. And what I mean by that is people who are oblivious to racism. It serves them. It serves us as white people. But it doesn't mean that we're aware of the system. And it's one of the issues that I work hard at, is trying to raise awareness in white people who really care about racism. That's the conundrum for me. It's not like all white people are hateful. We're not.
Okay.
Some of us are just ignorant.
Okay. I would assert, number one, I am a black male victim of white supremacy, so to be expected, we'll probably have some areas where we don't agree, which is great. But I think for the purpose of this conversation, number one, we are talking to an admitted racist. Is that correct, Dr. Trepanier?
That is correct.
Okay. I have concluded, and I think you have the same conclusion in your book, that it is really not relevant whether white people are aware, unaware. The bottom line is that all white people are racist, and I've concluded that as well. I've also concluded that the evidence shows, and I mean an alarming amount of evidence, that even these white people who say that they're not aware, once they become aware, they're still working to make sure that they dominate non-white people worldwide. And I mean, we wouldn't be in this problem, we wouldn't be in this trouble if that wasn't true, I don't think. That's my view as a victim. I could be incorrect. But I think this will come out as the show goes along. Are white people dedicated? Aware, unaware, whatever term you want to use. Are white people dedicated to making sure the system of racism, white supremacy remains in place? I think it'll come out as we go. I have a request. As I was reading your work, I ran across a ton of familiar names. Dr. Joe Fegan, Charles W. Mills, the infamous Timothy Wise, Jane Elliott, Joel Covell, Dr. Peggy McIntosh, Noel Ignatieff. They've all been guests on this program, some of them multiple times. So I think I'd like to think of this, we're the advanced class, so hopefully you will be challenged today. You already know we're going to have some disagreement. I hope it's going to be super courteous and super challenging. I hope that, I hope that it's a really challenging interview. With that, one of the main thing, the most important thing that I got from your book, and this goes right to my definition. You in your book assert that one of the main problems as to why we have not replaced the system of white supremacy with a system of justice is thinking that there is a category of white people who are not racist, meaning there are some white people who do not practice racism. And this doesn't just mean that there's some white people who are not in the Klan or not neo-Nazis or anything like that, just meaning white people throughout their day, they don't do anything to participate in, uphold the system of white supremacy, and that is just not true. I want to read I want to read. This is from page 82, and this is super important. I'm going to hush and get your thoughts after I read this quick passage, because I've concluded that the confusion in your book, you're saying a lot of white people, they're unaware, they're confused about this. I have concluded that non-white people are astronomically confused about this, so much so that it's hard for me as a black male to even assert that every single white person is a racist and be taken seriously. So I want to read this passages 82 and 83 of your book. I want to read this and then have you take it from there, and hopefully you can really emphasize why non-white people should totally get that out of their head, that there are some white people who are not racist. This is 82 from the book Silent Racism. And I am going to switch a few terms. I want to say that because some of these terms, you talk about the importance of words. Some of these words, I think, whether you're aware or not, support the maintenance of racism, white supremacy. So I'm going to switch some of those terms. And I've written this passage out on the page, and people can clearly see I put in brackets the terms that I switched. The existence of the not racist category produces in the minds of well-meaning, that would be one right there, well-meaning white people. The existence of the not racist category produces in the minds of non-white people the illusion that there are white people who bear no responsibility for the institutional racism, white supremacy. Yet, silent, refined racism, white supremacy cannot be isolated from the racist, white supremacist practice and everyday white supremacy of white people who produce systemic white supremacy daily, regardless of their recognition of it or their intention to do so. In this way, the illusion that most white people are not racist virtually ensures the perpetuation of the system of white supremacy. Although refined racism, white supremacy, by definition, is not spoken aloud, it would be a mistake to assume that it is of little importance or that the behavior following from it is not racist. Passivity by white people is also important in maintaining the process of white supremacy. It not only colludes with the system of white supremacy, allowing it to operate without interruption, but also encourages it. This is 82 and 83. I did change a few terms. If you read the passage, you'll note that I did change some terms. Can you explain this to our listeners with the most simple terms that you can so that we easily understand why there is no such thing as a white person that is not racist?
Right, because we are in a system that benefits us. And when I say we, I'm talking about white people. And awareness of it does not change the system. Whether we're aware of it or not aware of it, the system is still going to benefit white people. One of the things that I like to clear up with white people. Now, you need to remember, my audience is white people. And so that's usually who I'm talking to, and those are the people that I'm trying to get their heads to change. And one of the things I like to stress in that audience is it doesn't matter if what you do is intentional or non-intentional. If it has negative effects for people of color, it is racist. It doesn't matter what your intention was. One of the things that happens, I think, in the white community is that a lot of focus is placed on intentions. Everybody remembers Don Imus and his comments, and his defense was, well, I didn't mean for it to be racist. Well, that doesn't have any, it doesn't matter if you mean for it to be racist or not. If it has negative effects, it's racist. period. And that's really hard for white people to get, because white people like to think that racism is always intentional. So that's one of the points that I like to stress. And the other thing that I think is so important, Gus, is the passivity. There was one woman in my study who, I think I asked the question, have you ever done something or said something that you later discovered was racist, but you didn't realize it at the time? And this woman said, well, no, because racism doesn't have anything to do with me. Now, that is the height of unawareness. That is a white person who has simply got her head buried in the sand and doesn't want to look at racism. She was probably the least aware person in my study. Other white people in the study, and I just take exception to your claim that all white people are dedicated to white supremacy. Other white people in the study who had more awareness, if I asked that question, have you ever said or done something that you later discovered was racist? One of the women raised her hand and said, yes, last week. And she explained what her comment had been that was thoughtless. And she said, I realized after I said it that it was wrong, it was racist. And that's the person that I'm most interested in. Those are the people that can make a difference, and that aren't making a difference because they still have this idea that some people aren't racist. And that's why I make the claim that all white people are racist. We may not know it, but even if we become aware of it, it doesn't mean we're suddenly not racist anymore, because we have so much unawareness of what's even racist. And so even people, like Joe Fegan, people who know so much about racism, have areas where they might say something unawarely. And that's where I like to put my attention. Mainly I put it there because nobody else is talking about that.
Okay. Well, number one, I did not say that all white people are dedicated. I did not say that, and I think people who've heard this program have heard me give that definition. I've never said all white people are dedicated. I said all white people are racist. The definition says that a global system of people who classify themselves as white. It doesn't say all white people, just making sure we're clear with terms.
People who classify themselves as white.
Wait a minute. Let me continue, please.
Okay.
The second thing, I want to remind listeners, we are talking to an admitted racist. Now, when you assert that white people are not aware, I just want listeners to keep in mind, because you say this is a key component of white people who allege to be anti-racist or race awareness, the term you use in your book, that they are supposed to keep in mind this is a long-running problem between white people and non-white people. White terrorism against non-white people worldwide, this did not just start in the last 40 years. In fact, it would have been absurd for some white person to make that comment just 30, 40 years ago, that, white people are just not aware. So, I mean, that I want people to keep that in mind. This argument that white people are just mindlessly unaware, going through their day, racist jokes left and right, mistreatment of non-white people in all areas of people activity at all times worldwide. This is a relatively new wrinkle in what white people have been saying about the practice of racism, and I just don't believe it. I think it would be more accurate to say that white people have been practicing racism, white supremacy, from little stuff all the way to snatching penises off black males. They've been doing this for so long, it's on default. They don't have to think about this consciously. And if they mess up, as you point out in the book, other white people will set them straight. Hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing as a white person, as a racist. You say that in your book. That's a big part of the reason you say that more white people don't step up, is because they know other white people will get on them if they look like they are not going along with the white supremacist script.